December 1st, 2015, Tuesday. For anonymous reasons, the face in the video is very blurred out, and I will not use my name. This is going to be a video journal that I'm going to try to keep up with. I can't guarantee that I will, but I'm going to try. I've tried various different journals over my lifetime, first handwritten and eventually on the computer, but I've always gone a few days and then just given up on it. So maybe video journal will be a little better. We'll see. Anyway, so what to put in the first one? Well, guess I could say life so far has been alright. Yeah, the day wasn't too bad. Got up, went to work. Work actually went by pretty quickly. And went to my friend's house. Hung out with him for a bit and came home. Had a good bowl of chili cooked by my wife. Can't complain there. It's pretty good. Read some news online. Watched some videos on YouTube. And then decided to do this. Oh, I played Monopoly on Wii. Yeah. I usually play that every night. It's funny, I'll play the richest edition. It's a different edition from the regular kind, but you have to play mini games in it. Well, I don't play the mini games. I just let the computer play it, and I usually always come in last anyway. But this way, the die roll is more random. Yet I have figured out that about 75% of the time, even if I don't play any of the mini games, you just play the board part where you're moving around, I'll still win. So, yeah, anyway, did that and then decided to do this journal. Anyway, I was looking at my news stuff though, and seeing a few new things about the whole Ferguson riots. Man, that's an issue, let me tell you. Some people want to discuss it, others don't even want to talk about it. And it's just because of the way that it comes out, you know? Nobody wants to talk about race, and yet that's what the situation has been made out to be. For those of you who don't know and are actually watching this or listening to this, not that I'm expecting anybody to actually watch this video. There's probably so many of these video journals on YouTube, I doubt anyone's even going to see this. But who knows? We'll find out. Anyway, Ferguson thing, it's the whole incident has been made to be about race, when it should be more about the increased militarization and brutality of the police. Because it's not just happening in Ferguson, Missouri. It's happening all over the country, yet all over the world. Police are becoming more ruthless and more violent. Now, here where I live, in the great town of Stillwater, Oklahoma, our police don't seem to be that way, at least not that I've seen or heard. But one thing I have noticed about Stillwater is that it likes to cover up its bad news. You don't hear about it a lot. Now, if some of the city news stations get a hold of it, yeah, then you're going to hear about it. But you won't hear it in the local news or see it in the local newspapers. Like, for example, take just a few weeks ago, there was a guy that was beheaded here in Stillwater. Now, normally, that news probably would have gone unnoticed. And if you did hear about it, it would have been one of those, well, did it really happen? Did it not? Those urban myth kind of things. But the story got to the news stations down in the city, and at that point Stillwater couldn't hide from it. Now, the circumstances surrounding it, I'm not quite sure. From what I have heard, they were playing a poker game, and at some point in time, one of them drew out a sword, pretty much a machete, and I guess damn near chopped the guy's head off. Sorry. And then left and walked through some dealerships and down Highway 51 for a bit until he was finally picked up. Initial stories said that he was muttering about witchcraft or something like that. I don't know. It's kind of freaky when you think about it. I mean, that kind of stuff doesn't usually happen here in Stillwater. But it did. Although it's scary, is that it's probably happened a lot more often than we know. It's just the fact that Stillwater, like I said, likes to cover up their bad news. Anyway, back to the Ferguson incident. And here's the situation. Back in August, I believe August 9th, 2014, Officer Darren Wilson, for whatever reason, was forced to shoot and kill 19-year-old Michael Brown. Now, when the initial event happened, the first witness report said that Michael Brown had his hands up when the officer shot him. Officer Darren Wilson. So at first, this looked like another case of police brutality. But then other witness reports started coming in. And they said, no, there was actually a scuffle in the car. And reports, of course, from Darren Wilson while he was in the hospital, because he was beaten up, said that Michael Brown attacked him in the car and actually tried to go for his gun. Whatever the result may have been, the simple fact of the matter was 6 shots were fired. All 6 hit Michael Brown. And they killed him. And what was worse was they left the body in the road for 4 hours, just laying there. Didn't come pick it up, just left it there. And I think that's what really got the crowd going, because it got bad. Those first few nights was pretty violent. Now, of course, there was a lot of theory as to if that violence was actually started by hired government agents or agents of non-governmental organizations done purposely to try to incite violence. We all know that there are proponents of this country's government who would like nothing more than to start a race war in this country. Although I have faith that the American people can see through that and realize that's not the way to go. So far, it seems like it's going to be that way, but we never know what the future is going to hold. So, anyway, in the ensuing nights and weeks, there was a lot of protest about this shooting, and there were people that were focusing mainly on that case, but there were also people who were protesting against just police brutality in general. Because it's true, they had become worse. There was a homeless man in Albuquerque, New Mexico who was shot dead, and he wasn't even armed. There was an unarmed white kid who was shot dead by a police officer in Utah. There was a guy that was shot dead in Walmart because he was buying a pellet gun, or a BB gun. I don't remember which. An air rifle, anyway. And another shopper called 911 and said some man's in the store waving around a gun, and the cops Cops showed up and they told him to drop the gun. He didn't, and they shot him. You know, and that's just a few. There's a lot of accounts of cops holding people down and then end up having an asthma attack as a result of it and dying. There's a case of one guy here in Oklahoma, actually down in Oklahoma City, where the cops had him on the ground and he went into an asthma attack and they wouldn't let him up. He also had a heart arrhythmia, and that asthma attack caused that heart arrhythmia to mess up, and he had a heart attack and he died. And he actually didn't do anything. There was a fight breaking out between his wife and some other woman, and he went in to break it up, and the cop took him down. So, yeah, and then there was like another case of like a cop that had a black guy on the ground, and the police fired a shot at him for some reason or another, and it went through him, bounced off the concrete underneath him, and back into him, and it killed him. He bled out on the concrete. I mean, these are just a few examples of what the police are turning into. I mean, heck, when the first Ferguson riots broke out back in August, there was so many video footage of just, armored vehicles like MRAPs, stuff the military uses over in Afghanistan and Iraq, on the streets of Ferguson, Missouri. They were arming assault rifles with laser pointers at protesters and basic civilians. The cops were dressed in full combat gear. They were pumping tear gas into the crowd. There was videos of different journalist crews and reporters getting hit with tear gas or getting arrested, and it was just like, what the hell? And it made national coverage, world coverage. You had countries like Russia and China coming out going, and you're sitting here preaching to the world that the U.S. is all about humanity, but yet look at what you're doing to your own people trying to protest. And that's what this whole Ferguson thing should be about, is about the fact that our police are actually becoming more of a military than a police force, and that's not good. Because then they start taking less care with human life. And we become more statistics, numbers, and not people. Which means they have no problem killing us if need be. Anyway. And now, the weeks and months following, there was a lot of protest as a result of it. Eventually, the case went to trial, and here about a week ago, they came to a verdict, and they decided not to shoot Officer Darren Wilson. Not to indict Officer Darren Wilson. I'm getting tired. It's about my bedtime. Yeah, that didn't fly over too well. There were a couple nights more violence, and this time there was a lot of buildings burned down. There was shots fired. I don't know if there was any casualties at that time. Now, there have been some people that have died since, but it's not exactly clear if it was linked to the riots and protests or not. There was a white guy that I guess got hammered to death, basically, when a group of protesters found his car and tried to beat on it with the hammer, and he got out to confront him, and they beat him to death. And then I guess there was like something else about like a kid or something who died. Oh yeah, there was like some guy that shot a kid that was sitting in a motionless car. I don't know if he was trying to rob him or carjack him, but shot the kid, and the kid died in the hospital. Now, we're not sure if that's linked to the protest or not, but the clothes the protester had on it said something on the shirt, I don't remember what, and then it had a face of somebody. Chances are it was a Michael Brown t-shirt. Chances are probably a protester, but if that's the case, why are they attacking a motionless vehicle, killing a kid? There's actually some rumors now that I've been reading that there were agents on the ground, you know, plainclothes police officers on the ground that started a lot of the fires. Ended up taking a lot of the buildings down in Ferguson, and that the protesters came by and just kind of egged them on. I guess there's some cam footage on and off from different like traffic cams and whatnot that you can see this doing it. I didn't actually check any other videos out, so I haven't seen it myself. But anyway, from what I've heard though, the Ferguson riots have kind of toned down a bit, but a lot of people are still kind of wondering if this is going to be the start of what I want to call a race war. Honestly, in my humble opinion, I don't think it's going to come to that, not yet anyway. I think the American people are smarter than that, and I think that they will see that that's exactly what this is some kind of event to act as a catalyst to start that. But then again, I could be wrong, and people could fall for it, and in the next few months we could experience a race war. Wouldn't that be something? Blacks and whites killing each other, Mexicans killing both, Asians hanging back waiting to see who's going to make it. It'd be interesting. And it'd be scary, too. And think about it, anytime I walk outside and see someone that wasn't white, I'd have to wonder if they were going to come kill me. I would have to buy a gun and keep myself armed. That'd be new. I could barely even shoot a gun. Oh. Anyway. I'm also reading more about Obama and how he's supposedly the Antichrist. I can see it. I mean, there are some people that make some valid points, but to be honest, it's the Bible says that the Antichrist will be loved by everybody. And yet Obama is not. In fact, out of everyone I've talked to in the past couple months, I can only think of maybe 2 people who actually still believed in Obama. Everybody else was like, yeah, he's nothing. So, granted, that's probably just a small group of people in, kind of an isolated area. That doesn't really represent the entire country, but if what I see on the internet is right and read on comment boards and stuff like that, it seems like most of the country doesn't love this man. Most of the world doesn't like this man. And if that's the case, then how can he be the Antichrist? Because everyone's supposed to love him and worship him. So I do not believe that he is the Antichrist. I was almost convinced a few months ago, I won't lie, but a friend of mine made a very valid point that everyone's supposed to love the Antichrist, and not everyone loves Obama. In fact, a good amount of people don't love the man. They hate the man. They want him out. But white people are afraid to publicly say it because they're afraid that they'll be called racist since he's black. No one's told me that yet, though, and that's fine. However, if they did, I'd just look at him and go, well, I didn't like Bush either, and he's about as white as you can get. So, I don't think you have a valid point there. But then again, people like that would probably just keep barking up the same tree anyway. Oh, it doesn't matter. You don't like Obama because he's black. You're racist. You must be a conservative Republican. No, I'm actually an independent, registered anyway. I hold my views as being pretty much middle of the road, and I don't prescribe to a Democratic or Republican belief system. I think the debate between the two is just a distraction to keep us occupied and to keep us arguing amongst each other. I mean, if you have those hardcore Republicans who will not agree with Democrats on anything just based on principle. And the same from the Democrat side. So not everyone's going to see the same thing and work together. A lot of them are not going to. And the government uses that. You keep a people divided and they will never stand up to resist you. That's kind of what the whole Ferguson thing, I think, is about too. It constantly keeps the people divided. Half the people think, well, this is about a race thing. Whites, because all the police officers are white except for like 3, and they've been profiling black people all over that place, for so many years now. And then you have another side that's going, well, the story may not actually be what everybody thinks it is. This officer may very well have been within his rights to do what he did. Not that I agree with him shooting the kid. He could have at least hit him in the leg and just made him drop. In fact, I thought that's what they were supposed to do: hit you in the leg, hit you in the arm, and make you drop. But I don't know. Now we need to look at the bigger issue, which is police brutality and the ever increasing militarization of police. But anyway, back to my point, Obama being the Antichrist. I don't agree with that. I really don't. I'm not saying that he's good, but I don't believe he is the Antichrist. I don't think the Antichrist has actually showed himself yet. He hasn't made himself known. I'm not saying he doesn't exist, because he's out there. He just hasn't made himself known yet. At least not publicly, anyway. I don't know. But then again, the Antichrist might not even be real. It may be just a metaphor for something. Who knows? It'd be nice if that was the case. I don't know if I really want to go through the 7 years of tribulation. Although, in a way, it's kind of what we're getting. This past 6 years have been a tribulation for a lot of people. Wars and conflicts and economic depressions and unemployment and protests and riots and just big natural disasters, and it's horrible. So horrible. I don't know what to do. I guess there's not a lot I, as a person, can do except just keep talking to people about it and try to spread the word, even if they don't agree with me on it and try to fight with me on it. At least I'm talking to them about it, and maybe they'll go home and think about it. And who knows, maybe, with me fighting with them, maybe I'll hear something from them that'll make me want to go look at something again, and maybe I'll discover that maybe, he was right on that point. Maybe he is, just because somebody doesn't disagree with you, or just because somebody doesn't agree with you, doesn't mean you can't learn something from that person. And they may have some information that maybe you didn't even take into account or consider. And once you do take into account and consider, it kind of changes things. Maybe not quite the way that he sees it, but it still changes things. And that's kind of interesting to take from that, I think. But at the same time, I tend to shy away from debates because I'm just not very good at them. It's not because I don't know the subject matter, and it's not because I can't explain it. It's just I get too into it. I get very emotional, and I'll get loud and start yelling. And once you're yelling in a debate, the other person's going to stop listening to you. Because at that point, it's not a debate anymore, but just a yelling match. And nothing gets solved that way. I don't know. Anyway, we'll see. I do know this: the future is definitely going to be rocky. And it's not looking too bright for most of us. If what I think is going to happen, there's going to be a series of events. It's going to happen. Those events can range from anything from terrorist attacks to disease outbreaks, massive disasters, or all-out war, or economic collapse. I think a number of these actual scenarios are going to happen, not maybe at the same time, but within the same year or possibly two, kind of consecutively. Like, I can almost guarantee that within the next couple years there will be an American city nuked. Now, which one? I don't know. If I really had to choose, I would probably say Chicago. A lot of people are pointing towards New York, considering that Chicago is the hometown of Obama. It would be a logical place for terrorists to nuke, because if they're against America, then they are against Obama. And that's what the terrorists want, is the downfall of America. So what better than to nuke the president's hometown? The problem is the president, well, maybe not the president himself, but our government via the CIA actually supports and funds the terrorist groups that are actually planning these attacks and may carry out these attacks. And what's funnier still is that the terrorists may not even realize who they're getting the support from. They may not even care. So if the government wanted to create such a large terrorist attack that it would cause the American people to beg for more security, and thus allowing them to maybe declare martial law in the extreme case, if at the least just take a few more rights away and make it a little more harder to travel and do things, then they could use that. They could be like, well, the terrorists must have decided to bomb Chicago because that's Obama's hometown. And a lot of people will believe that because most of your terrorists are Muslim, and for some reason, the particular extreme faction of Islam, it's not all of Islam, but that particular extreme faction of Islam just despises America. Just despises us so bad. And I don't understand why. The only thing I can think of is because our military keeps going over to the Middle East and just kicking people around. Of course, since we've been entrenched in Afghanistan and Iraq for the last decade, it seems like people aren't just rolling over very much anymore. But that's what happens when you let the world know that you're thinning out the military and making way for drones. Although, don't get me wrong, I mean, drones are nice, but they can only do so much. It's always good to have soldiers on the ground. Anyway. I guess that's about it for tonight. I need to try to get to bed. I've been getting to bed late here the past couple days. I mean, yesterday I didn't get to sleep until almost 9, 9:30. Day before that, it was almost 10. You know, it's not that I'm worrying about something or stressing out over anything, really. Just wasn't tired. But I'm actually pretty tired now, so it shouldn't be too hard to get to sleep. Anyway, y'all have a good night. And hopefully I will have another video tomorrow. Peace.